All right, so when you think of anger, what comes to mind? Probably a chaotic, red-hot outburst, right? But what if for some people, it's the total opposite? What if it's a cold, calculated, structured response? Today, we're diving into the neuro blueprint of exactly that kind of anger.
So let's just kick things off with this pretty wild idea. What if, for some minds, getting angry isn't losing control? What if it's actually the most logical, the most structured response to a very specific kind of problem? It's not an emotion that hijacks reason, it's an emotion that's born from it. Okay, to really get this, we have to talk about a pretty unique cognitive operating system. It's called Tabular Coherence Maintenance, or TCM for short. And you can think of it as a way of processing the world that absolutely demands order, structure, and a perfect fit for everything.
I love this analogy. It's kind of like a mind that builds its world out of mental Legos. Every single piece of information, every idea, every concept, it has to click together perfectly. And we're not talking about a preference here. This fit is a non-negotiable, fundamental need for the whole system to feel stable.
And when it happens, when all those mental Legos snap perfectly into place, the system gets this amazing internal prize. It's called a format reward. It's basically the brain's internal thumbs up, saying, yep, that's it, the structure is correct, all is well.
Now, this isn't just a one-and-done thing. Oh, no. It is a constant, self-reinforcing cycle. The brain is always seeking that structure. It achieves it, gets that super satisfying reward, and boom, the system is stable. This cycle is literally the engine that keeps this whole way of thinking humming along.
Okay, so that leads us to the big question, right? What happens when that beautiful, perfect pattern breaks? What are the consequences when that absolutely essential reward is just gone? Or, from the system's point of view, what if it feels like it was stolen?
And let me be clear, the denial of this reward is not a minor inconvenience. It triggers this profound, system-wide instability. It creates this deep frustration, this jarring sense of cognitive misfit. Imagine a beautifully running machine, and someone just throws a wrench in the gears. The whole thing grinds to a halt and shakes violently. That's what's happening here.
So this really lays out the two states of the system, side by side. On one hand, you have coherence, which leads to a stable, rewarded system. Everything's great. But on the other side, when that reward is denied, the system doesn't just get wobbly or unstable. No, it goes a step further. It registers that disruption as an actual betrayal.
And that is where the anger comes from. The anger that shows up isn't some random, chaotic flare-up. It's a direct, almost calculated, cognitive emotional response. It's a reaction to violating the system's most fundamental rule. You could almost say it's the only logical output for a system whose core need for coherence has been so completely and totally ignored.
So this is where it gets really fascinating. Because this whole process we've been talking about, it's not just some abstract psychological theory, it has a physical blueprint, a literal map in the brain's wiring.
Okay, let's start with part one, the actual brain regions that make this structured thinking possible. We're talking about the parts of the brain responsible for building these cognitive Lego structures, and the parts that are super sensitive to getting or not getting that all-important format reward.
All right, so let's meet the key players. These four regions aren't working alone. They form this incredibly powerful circuit. They're all working together to process rewards, to handle cognitive control, and to organize all the memories needed to build this highly structured, almost tiled mental world.
First up is the orbitofrontal cortex, or OFC. You can think of this as the system's reward judge. It's constantly scanning, constantly evaluating, asking that one critical question. Did I get the format reward I was supposed to get? And when the answer is no, the OFC is what throws up the red flag and signals, hey, this might be a betrayal.
Then you've got the prefrontal cortex, the PFC. If the OFC is the judge, the PFC is the architect. This is the part in charge of cognitive control, of selecting the right patterns to build with, and really managing the whole logical reason side of this process, including the anger that comes when the system's rules are broken. And then there's the hippocampus. This guy acts like a super sophisticated digital filing system. It's an expert at something called pattern separation. Basically, it takes all the different pieces of the mental puzzle, these cognitive tiles, and makes sure every single one is filed and indexed perfectly so there are no overlaps. This is absolutely critical for that clean, organized recall you need to manage emotions in such a structured way.
Okay, moving on to the next part of the blueprint. Let's talk about the engines that power all of this, the visual and multisensory systems. These are the parts of the brain that make this kind of complex, geometric, almost 3D style of thinking even possible.
So, these regions are all about supporting two really critical processes. The first is called visual momentum, or VISM. The second is multisensory integration, or MULTS. You can think of them as the specialized hardware like a high-end graphics card that runs the brain's unique visual spatial software. They're what allow for that tiling of information we talked about.
And the superior colliculus in particular is a huge player here. It acts like the processing core of that graphics card, integrating our visual attention with our eye movements. It's what allows the brain to build, track, and even manipulate these incredibly complex mental patterns on the fly, in real time.
All right, for our final piece, let's zoom all the way out. Let's look at the larger functional systems that tie this all together. The systems that take what starts as a cognitive event, a broken pattern, and turn it into a full-body biological response.
See, the thing is, we're not just talking about a few isolated spots in the brain. We're talking about a whole network of interconnected systems. For example, that feeling of betrayal, it can directly mess with our executive control, making us way more reactive. The stress from that cognitive misfit can literally trigger neuroinflammation. And get this, the serotonergic system, the gut-brain axis, it means the health of our gut, where most of our serotonin comes from, can have a huge impact on how we react when that format reward is denied. It is a total, whole system reaction.
So what's the big takeaway here? We've basically traced a complete pathway from start to finish. It begins with a purely cognitive need for structure being violated. That violation gets registered as a betrayal, and that betrayal triggers a cascade, a full system neurological and biological reaction. It is a complete closed-loop circuit.
And that leaves us with one last really important thought to chew on. If we can truly accept that every mind has its own unique blueprint for making sense of the world, and that some blueprints need that geometric fit way more than others, then maybe, just maybe, understanding these deep-seated differences isn't just some interesting science fact. Maybe it's the actual key to building better communication, deeper empathy, and honestly just learning how to build things together better.